Alright, how am I going to start this today? Hi friends! Welcome back to my channel, Life Between Words. I am Katie. I'm so glad you're here, and today I'm going to do a book haul. Now, this is sort of my summer book haul. It's all the books that I got from, I don't know, like maybe even, when was my last book haul? May, I think? So June through August. And I just need to say, you guys, this is so nerdy of me. I got a new tripod. Well, new to me tripod. It's actually my grandfather's tripod, and you can tell that it's a vintage tripod, but it's so sturdy and I love it so much, and I wish I could show you because it's really cool, and I'm so glad to be replacing my other tripod because it was the flimsiest little thing, and this is a huge step up from that, so I'm just so grateful. Alright, so let's get started. I think I have 12 books to show you today. So the first set of books is from the Book Depository. I got an order off the Book Depository. I don't order from them very much, but I do lust after a lot of books off the Book Depository because they have covers that I usually want. The reason that I made an order from the Book Depository is that I was doing a buddy read this month of the book I See You by Claire McIntosh, and this book is not released yet in the United States, so I had to make an order off the Book Depository. Excuses, excuses. This is a thriller about a middle-aged woman named Zoe Walker who finds her photo in the back of a newspaper, and she didn't put it there, and the only information on the photo is a phone number and a website. And the thriller sort of takes off from there. It goes in many different directions, and it's very twisty, which I love in a thriller. And I really loved reading it with the bunch of ladies that I read it with. But I'll talk about it more in my wrap-up. The next book I got off the Book Depository is Emily of New Moon by L.M. Montgomery. L.M. Montgomery is the same woman who wrote the Anne of Green Gables series. This is the first book in her Emily trilogy. And some people, shocking, I know, but some people love this trilogy even more than they love the Anne books, and I feel like I might have read at least one of these a really long time ago when I was a kid, but I really want to reread them, and I love Ellen Montgomery. I love her writing, and I adore the Anne series. As many of you know, it is one of my all-time favorite book series ever in the whole world. It speaks to my soul. Like many of Ellen Montgomery's books, this story follows an orphaned girl named Emily who goes to live with relatives, I believe, on Prince Edward Island. And like Anne of Green Gables, I think it follows a cast of characters that are much beloved, so not only Emily, but everyone else who surrounds her. And I'm expecting it to be very heartwarming and lovely with beautiful descriptions of the countryside and the people and life in general. Highly anticipating picking this one up. This next book I heard about on Kate Howe's channel, and from Kate directly. She told me that she thought that I'd love this book, and so I found it on Book Depository and got it for myself. It's called 9 Coaches Waiting, and it's by Mary Stewart. Mary Stewart has written prolifically. From what I understand, this is sort of a classic romantic gothic story. And when I say romantic, I've mentioned this before, but when it comes to gothic books, romantic doesn't necessarily mean heart romantic, it just means romantic in the dramatic sense. So this follows a character named Linda who goes to live in the French Alps, and mystery ensues. And I loved this cover too. This was much prettier than the cover in the United States as well. It doesn't really look like a gothic novel though. It looks kind of like a historical fiction romance or like contemporary of some sort. It looks sort of light and fluffy, but I expected that the insides will have a lot more intrigue than the outside suggests. The last book I got off Book Depository is a historical fiction book called Emperor, the Gates of Rome by Con Iggulden. Con Iggulden writes a ton of historical fiction, and I heard about him first from Jess on her channel, Catch a Single Thought, and I had never heard of Con Iggulden, but I love historical fiction, and when I was looking up his different series, I really didn't know which one to start with. He had this one, which is about Caesar. It's a Roman historical fiction novel. So this first book is about his childhood, and then it follows him up, I think, until his assassination and maybe even beyond. He also has one about Genghis Khan, and that's the other one, and I almost wish that I had started with that one instead, but you know, I've heard they're both really great, So I'm anxious to pick this up. Next, I got a couple books from Barnes & Noble this summer, and usually when I go to Barnes & Noble, which I don't go to too often, I have a hard time not picking up at least one book while I'm there. I picked up From Dune with Death by Ruth Rendell, or Rendell, I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Ruth Rendell is a very highly regarded English mystery writer. This is the first book in her Inspector Wexford series. This is another series that Kate Howe talks about on her channel a lot as being a great mystery series, and because I've been getting into mysteries and thrillers, I really wanted to pick up a Ruth Rendell. I've heard that her writing is very literary, and so I'm really looking forward to reading this. Also, I was shocked how short this book was. It's only 225 pages. It's a teeny little thing. The next book I got from Barnes & Noble makes up for size because I got the first book in Justin Cronin's post-apocalyptic series. I think it's called Passage. I'm not sure what the series is called, but this is the first book. It's called The Passage. It's funny because when I got this, I hadn't heard anyone on BookTube talk about it, and I actually went searching for some reviews of it, and I couldn't really find much. But I will say that since then, I've heard a couple people talk about it, so I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because the third book in the trilogy is somewhat recent. I don't know, but anyway, I'm really looking forward to it. Like I said, this is a post-apocalyptic novel that I think follows a huge cast of characters. A lot of people recommend this book for fans of The Stand, and if that's the case, then it probably has some elements that are a little bit fantastical because The Stand, while it is definitely a post-apocalyptic novel, The Stand by Stephen King, for those of you who don't know. So The Stand is a post-apocalyptic novel, but there are aspects of the book that are something we wouldn't find in our own world. And I think that might be true here. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. But I'm really excited to read this one too. I've heard that the writing is very literary, but I've also heard that it's a huge page turner. So I love that combination. I love when the writing is really good, but I also want to keep turning the pages because I don't find that those two things often go hand in hand. I think the rest of the books that I have to show you are all from Amazon, so let's just get started into that group of books. You guys are going to laugh at me, but the first book that I got off of Amazon is Betsy Tacy by Maud Hart Lovelace. This is a middle grade book, and not only is it middle grade, but I actually think it's like early reader middle grade. It's only 122 pages, and the writing is really big. You probably can't even tell, but the writing is huge, and it's super short. It's the first in her series about best friends named Betsy and Tacy. People love this series like they love the Anne of Green Gables series, and I've always wanted to read it. I heard about it first way back in college from a friend who was telling me about it, and at the time I'd never even heard of it. So I've been wanting to read this for years. I know that it follows Betsy, and I think maybe Tacy too, until they both are, married and in their 20s probably. And I'm wondering if as the years progress, whether the books get longer and a little more advanced in terms of the writing, but I'll probably read them all no matter what. And then I have another Ellen Montgomery book, and that is Magic for Marigold. This is one of Ellen Montgomery's standalone books, and I got this book for a very specific reason, and I'm a little embarrassed to tell you, but I'm going to anyway. So we found out this past weekend that we're having a boy. But before that, my husband and I have been throwing out names for girls and boys, and one of our favorite names for a girl was Marigold. And when I found out that Ellen Montgomery had a book about a character named Marigold, I was like, I have to read that book. So that's why I got it, and now it's kind of null and void because we're having a boy. So I might have to save that name for another time. But I do love that name. I've heard this isn't necessarily her best book, but I'm still looking forward to reading it. It's Ellen Montgomery. I'm sure I'll love it. Alright, and this is another book recommended by Kate Howe. And as you can tell from this book haul, Kate and I do have a lot of similar taste because a lot of these books were recommended by her. And that is the first book in the Elliott Family Trilogy by Elizabeth Goudge. This first book in the trilogy is called The Bird in the Tree. And this just ticked a lot of boxes for me that sounded like something that I would love. It's historical fiction, it's heartwarming, takes place in England, family drama, I'm excited to read it. The next book that I got is a historical romance book, and it gets kind of mixed reviews on BookTube, and that is The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simons. This is a World War II historical fiction romance that takes place in Russia, which is kind of a mouthful, and like I said, it gets some mixed reviews, but I've seen some booktubers for whom this trilogy is their absolute favorite, and for some people, they can't stand it. So I don't really know where I'm going to fall. I have a feeling that I'm really going to like it because I tend to like these sweeping, dramatic, romantic, historical fiction novels. That tends to be something that I enjoy. So I do think that I'm going to like it, but I guess we'll see. This is a historical fiction haul. Seriously, I didn't realize how much historical fiction, for as broadly as I read and for like as many genres as I read, this is a lot of historical fiction. I didn't deviate too much, a couple books, but you know. So the next book that I got is called Jane Steele by Lindsay Fay. This was a new release this year, and this comes highly recommended by Joss from Squibbles Reads. She has very good taste in books, so I'm really anxious to pick it up. So this book is not a retelling of Jane Eyre, but inspired by Jane Eyre. So a very famous quote from Jane Eyre is, "Reader, I married him." And I'm pretty sure this book starts, "Reader, I murdered him." So there's some parallels between the two stories, but I'm pretty sure that Jane Steele becomes some sort of assassin, and obviously Jane Eyre is not an assassin, she's a governess. I am a huge fan of Jane Eyre. It's one of my favorite books. I love it so much. So when I heard about this book, I knew that it was something that I had to read, and also look how pretty the cover is. It's so cool. I love this cover. And I'm pretty sure that I might have even shown this book in one of my other videos. I don't remember which one now, but you guys have all seen it before, so there you go. It's so pretty. I'm excited to read it. Another book that sort of gets mixed reviews on BookTube is An Ember in the Ashes, but I loved An Ember in the Ashes. Some people said it was like slow, which is so funny to me because when I read An Ember in the Ashes last summer, I couldn't put it down. I became a terrible mother. I just wanted to read all the time. I read it in like a day and a half, which is just crazy for this time in my life because I never read books that fast anymore. So I loved An Ember in the Ashes, and last month, at the end of the month, A Torch Against the Night came out, which is the second book in that series. I'm very excited to pick this book up, and my brother, who has very similar reading habits to me and reading taste, he devoured this book, so I have a feeling that I will also devour it. I have one more book, my Book of the Month Club book box pick from August, and that is Dark Matter. I've already showed this to you on my September TBR, but I need to mention it in the book haul. So Dark Matter is a science fiction thriller about a man who is attacked in some way, knocked unconscious, and when he wakes up, his life is not the same as what it was before he passed out. And he spends the book trying to get back to what he knows is actually reality. So maybe an alternate reality sort of science fiction-y thriller book. I'm reading this at the end of the month, and I'll let you know then what I think about it. I'm sorry this video is coming to you so late. I meant to film it yesterday, but I hadn't taken a shower in like 4 or 5 days, #momlife. So I decided that I wanted to look at least semi-presentable in front of the camera. So I waited until today because I showered. So anyway, even if I didn't, I probably shouldn't worry about stuff like that, but you know, I don't want to be disgusting. I feel like maybe you would have been able to smell me through the camera, which is a really gross thought. So guys, with that, I'm done. That seemed like a lot of books, and it was, but that was 3 months worth of books, you've got to remember, and I've read more books than I hauled, so I feel like that's pretty good, because I do have a lot of books to read. So yeah, that's a wrap, guys. I will see you soon with another video. Bye!